Thank you all for joining us. Ian McClintock from the Charity Excellence Framework, who we are incredibly lucky to have here today. He's going to be giving us a presentation. He's entitled Fishing for Funders, which we'd kind of billed as being fundraising in tough times. He's got some incredibly useful tidbits of information and some useful ideas for you all. So I hope you take something really good away from this session. Say over to Ian at this point, and I'll ask Ian to run us through his fantastic presentation.
We hope. Hi, I'm Ian. I've got a whole string of fancy post-nominals I don't use because I don't think that's actually any measure of value. But the drawback with people like me is we like that thing. And when I went through my presentation, I found my Ansoff matrix, which is about product development, market presentation. And I thought that is so boring. So I retitled it Fishing, because that's more interesting. So what are we going to do? Fish in different ways, get set up to go fishing, fish in different pools because you catch more, use better bait, attract the fish, relax because you guys work hard enough as it is, and then land them. So effectively 7 different ways in which you can improve your fundraising. And you're going to say, why aren't there any funder lists in there? We have that. I'm lucky enough to live next to the Wendover Canal, which is brilliant. So as a thank you, I have substantially upgraded the buildings and equipment list, and I've created an admittedly small feasibility study list. And there are others, but you don't get them to the end, so you can't get to switch off. So where we start, basically the fish have gone, largely. If you look at 2021, the economic data is eye-wateringly bad. The worst recession in 300 years or something. The recession drives demand across the charity sector. You get more mental health issues, more unemployed people, more poverty. And what that does is it drives up the demand and it drives up the costs. At the same time, it impacts fundraising income, be it from the public. The major trusts, for example, rely in large measure on things like property and equities. They all go down. So that is not good. Assuming the vaccine rollout works, from mid-year on, it should look a bit better. So spring 2021 is not good at all. The last recession lasted 15 months and 12,000 charities closed. This one is potentially a lot worse. The funding gap's going to get bigger. That's how it is. But there is always funding out there, and it's a flight to quality. The guys that just throw in endless, bang them out the printer applications and go to the same old funders in the same old way, it's not going to work. So what we need to do is we need to think about how, why, when, and what to make sure that we're really hitting the target and that we're getting the income in. So where has all the money gone? The answer is nobody knows. But my estimates, based on my own economic kind of stuff, is they've pumped about 5 billion in COVID funding into the sector, which is a decent chunk. Much of that has been repurposed. And where did it go? Primarily to the vulnerable, as you would expect. So food banks, the homeless, people like that. That's where the focus has gone. And who's going to get it? Vulnerable people, individuals, young people, older people. Is this a temporary thing with COVID, or have we actually seen a change in how funders think and act? And I don't think anyone knows the answer to that question. But certainly people like international development organizations, animals, they've had a really, really hard time. It has not been equal. And how much? Most of it's been up to a K or 5K. So most of the funding's been really quite small. The good news is the turnarounds have been much quicker. There's less paperwork, there's more core, and there's a lot less focus on having to be a registered charity. Community groups and CICs have actually had rather more of a shout. Let's hope that stays that way. So how do you get your share? Right, fish in different pools. There's a huge range of fundraising techniques. I've got a little table, it's got about 12 on it. They all work, but it depends what kind of funding you want, how much, how quickly, who your donors are, investment, skills, and which will work best for you depends on your cause, your skills, how quickly. If you want to go into Facebook fundraising, it works brilliantly. If you've got 200 likes on your Facebook page, it isn't going to work for you. I sat down with a guy and I talked to him about that, and he said, oh, I've got lots. And he showed me a video he had. I didn't know he was a Pakistani personality. He had 250,000 views. Facebook fundraising is good for him, but there are a range of different types. So you need to think about, what do we have in resources in terms of our audience? How can we reach and engage them? Who should we ask and when? And it depends on the outside world, who the donors are, what matters to them, and a whole series of things. So there's a whole range and mix. Now, I'm not trying to take you down the route. There is a whole series of guidance and templates and toolkits that come with this presentation that I've made. I've just dropped them in. So if you want to look at these things, there are toolkits that will help you do that. But it's about thinking differently, instead of doing the same thing all the same way. So someone asked me about feasibility studying. I was chatting to someone and he said, yeah, it's an absolute pig. And what they did is they ran a crowdfunder and they raised the money and they got their feasibility funding. They tried something different. And the really boring bit, I did a whole webinar on this for people and it absolutely bombed, really tedious. But the point is this, I'm Scottish, I go for this stuff. We failed to claim £600 million a year just in gift aid. That's one of about 16 charitable tax reliefs, and you can claim all of them up to 4 years retrospectively. That's billions in core funding, and all you have to do is fill in the application form. So chatting to someone about that, and they said, well, how could we do that? If you've got donors, individual donors who give to you on a regular basis, or maybe the odd one-off who are all UK taxpayers, if you get them to sign the gift aid declaration, there is now a clause in that that says that that signature is 4 years retrospective. So if you've got someone who's been giving you £50 a month, if they sign that, you could claim gift aid for £50 a month going back 4 years. And all you have to do is sign the paper. So there is money out there and you can go and get it. I flagged this one up because nobody does it. Legacy fundraising. Let's talk about death. And it comes with all sorts of legal issues. You have to be really careful about how you talk to people about things like legacies, and there have been lots of court cases. So the other one is they have to die before you get it. And let's all hope that that's a very long time. But this isn't about asking people for money. Fundraising is about helping people to do what they want to do. I don't believe in pressurizing people. I believe in talking to them about the cause and about engaging them and about helping them to understand how they could help about things that they want to do and that matters to them. I'm not actually pressurizing them. I think that's wrong. And it's not difficult. I was chief exec of an Irish charity in London, and what we effectively did is we found ourselves a bunch of lawyers who were completely on side with what we were doing. We had a professional create a little legacy leaflet, and what the lawyers would do is, if they were helping people write the wills, they would say to them, have you thought of leaving a gift to charity? No, I haven't. Is it something you consider? Yeah. Anyone you particularly have in mind? No, nobody at all, never thought about it. Well, here's a leaflet from a fantastic charity that we know well. If you want, you might want to think about that. That was it. It was clean, it was simple, it didn't cost anything, and it was absolutely proper and fair. You do want to get advice if you think about it, but the point is this, legacy fundraising is the single most cost-effective form of fundraising that you can get. I came into work when I was running a biggish dementia charity. on a Monday morning, and I opened the post and someone had left us £675,000. No idea, never heard of them. So think about it, but get some good advice. It's low effort, low cost, and it can bring in large amounts. So getting set up to go fishing. I understand there's been talk about charity structures. If you go on to the Commission's website, absolutely everything is there. It is virtually ununderstandable. So I will run through you very quickly and simply, and I've got guides for these and infographics. If anyone wants them, you're more than welcome to have them. So the first one's an unincorporated association. Basically, it's an unregistered charity. In law, a charity is an organisation with exclusively charitable objectives for the public good. That is, it's reasonably open to everyone. So as long as you have a constitution and 3 trustees, you're sorted. You're a charity. You can open a bank account. You can submit claims. It is really, really easy to create one of these. And there are 100,000 of them in the UK. Well, nobody actually knows really, but it's about 100,000. And you can claim tax reliefs. There are catches, because there all are. You're not incorporated. And what that means is you do not have limited liability. So if you enter into a major contract or employ staff, it's not the charity that's employing the staff, it's you personally. And that's something you need to be mindful of. So if you're an unincorporated association, you know, this isn't a terrible big deal. I'd make sure you've got insurance though. Not because I think you'll need it, but because I think nobody should be volunteering for an organisation and putting themselves at any risk whatsoever. Your maximum income in a year is £5,000, and if not, you need to, if you go beyond that, you need to register with the Commission. And it's not quite as good for fundraising as a registered charity because the whole number thing has a certain cachet to it. But as a very quick, simple organisation to set up, it's great. Social enterprise goes by a number of names, most commonly known as a CIC. Extremely quick to set up. It's very flexible and it can fundraise. Not many people appreciate that. Everybody assumes they can. In essence, it's pretty much an ordinary company, but all the assets and profits are owned by the community. So it is non-profit, it works purely for the community. It doesn't get charitable tax reliefs, and fundraising isn't as good as a registered charity, again, because it doesn't have that cachet. A registered charity, you get all the tax reliefs, and it's best for fundraising. So if your primary source of income is around fundraising, this is the best option for you. But it's a pain to set up, and it is less flexible than the other options. You will hear a lot of talk about different kinds of registered charities. Effectively, there are 4. There's a trust, that's not incorporated, it's old, forget it. There's a registered company, which is the traditional one that most charities have because that's all that was around at the time. So you can become a charitable company, you're registered with Companies House and the Charity Commission, so there's a bit extra there. The next one is a charity incorporated organisation, a CIO. That's the more modern version. It is only registered with the Charity Commission, and virtually everybody would choose it nowadays. There's 2 kinds, because it'd be really boring if they made it simple. Association has got voting members, foundation doesn't have voting members, so everybody chooses a foundation because it's easiest to run. That's a quick gallop, but to be honest, if you're going to be a registered charity, the CIO foundation model is almost always the best choice. And that's basically about God knows how many numbers of pages distilled down into a slide. If you want to become any of those, I've produced guides on all of them. It's step by step, you do it yourself. It's all completely free, except for a social enterprise, because Company House wants 27 quid off you. Now, fish in different pools and use better bait. Everybody knows the classic heritage funders, but there aren't a huge amount of them. And funding heritage organisations has taken a slight step back when compared to things like food banks and older people and the vulnerable, and one can understand that. And everybody goes to the well-known ones. In actual fact, there are a whole range of them. There is a list on charity excellence, actually produced by someone else, and it just lists loads and loads and loads of trusts that fund heritage. But look at others. So you're managing the canal. This is about the heritage and history, and you know, that's a brilliant thing to do, and I really like it. But think about, could I consider elsewhere? So for example, there could be an educational dimension to a project you run. So if you were, and I'm making this up because I don't know about canals, I mean, in Scotland, the only lochs we have are big lumps of water with monsters in them. If you were refurbishing and making the canal bank good, and you were thinking about various bits and pieces, you could get a local primary school, for example, to be part of that, to learn about the history, to maybe come down and look at the flowers or think about the wildlife, and they could turn that into a kind of education project. Could you frame that reworking project as being educational and see if you could access educational grants? Or if it's actually environmental, I mean, the canals are one of the few spaces we have left where wildlife can thrive. I don't know about Wendover, but for all I know, it's the last habitat of the Buck's rattlesnake. Is there something special about where you work? I mean, talk to your local wildlife trust. Is it a special habitat, or do you have particularly rare animals or wildlife that are there? When I was in Bryce Norton, they asked me for £10,000 to build a great crested newt hotel. I was just about to throw them out of my office because I don't like being cheeky. And they went, no, we've got great crested newts in the water tanks. And apparently they're incredibly rare and valuable, and we've got to build them a hotel to keep them happy. So we did, obviously. But there is a something environment. And the community. As I said, you know, lochs for me are monsters and stuff. We walk along the Wendover Canal all the time. It's a beautiful place, absolutely brilliant. It is a community asset. With COVID, people are going out and they're walking because they can't do other things. You're an asset to the whole community. Can you position yourself in a sense to look at kind of funders who might consider you because of the huge benefits that you bring to the wider community? But maybe not. But competition is very tough. So when you put your bid in, you want to show the funders that you're really, really delivering impact for the work that you do. The heritage impact you deliver is unquestionable. That's very clear and right. But if you could weave into that, that actually you are creating an incredibly diverse environment for the local community, that the people in the community are actually benefiting hugely from the work that you do, that there are clear educational benefits to the local schools and the children. Anything you can put in there that shows you have even more impact than you do for your core work may not necessarily be unhelpful. And you will find funders may have priorities. I was talking to the BAME groups last week, and I'm saying, look, the older people, you're working with older people, it's not BAME funding, but a lot of the funders are now putting in things, we will give priority to Black and ethnic minority groups. And I said, so those funders are actually really useful for you, because there's what they're saying is we'll put you to the front of the queue. So if you're looking at funders, and besides the heritage element, they're interested in things like community development or the environment or education, if you can weave that in there a little bit, that will not be unhelpful. And good funders for small groups. Don't just go for the big stuff. Think about a spectrum of funding. So community foundations are charities that support charities in their local area. Most of them have access to multiple pots of funds, and most of them will not necessarily require you to be a registered charity. There are 46 of them. So there's one in every county, and their focus is exclusively on that county. You can't click the link on screen, but if you do, it will take you through to an interactive map. The interactive map will allow you to click directly through to your community foundation, and you can have a call with them this afternoon. At local councils, all of them have funding for community groups. It's usually very small. We're talking, £500 or something. And at the moment, there is, the focus is more on vulnerable people. But again, that link, if you click it, you drop your postcode in it, it will pull up the funding available to you in your local area. Not so much for you, this one, but there are police and crime commissioners in each area, and they use the proceeds from crime recovery, and they donate that out often to local community groups. Some of them are quite specific. They may say, oh, this is about domestic violence, or it's about this, but there is another pot of money you can check out. At local trusts, we're terribly home counties, so we've got the Rothschilds, which is a bit of a bonus for this area, since they've got a bit of money. But there will be local trusts in every single area. So the Lady Blogg Smythe Trust for the preservation and the benefit of the people and community in Buckinghamshire might only give you £5,000, but there's going to be less competition for that because she's only really interested in your area. So it's worth seeking that out. At the COVID funders, again, simpler applications, quicker turnarounds. I'm not sure necessarily how that would fit with you, but that's worth a look. And trusts that specifically support small charities. I get annoyed at the big charities because they've got professional fundraising teams, they can read terribly slick bids, they can get them out the door. And for people like yourselves, that puts you at a disadvantage. But there are actually quite a lot of funders who will say, we're only going to fund small charities. We're not going to fund anyone else. We're not going to fund the national guys. And that's helpful to you and reduces competition. How do you find them? Guess what? I've got a big list on charity excellence. And you sit there and say, well, I'm not really a registered charity at all. I'm just a little community group. So there's one for you as well. So you just go in, download the list, have a look through to see the ones you like, click the link, it'll take you to the website. Right, where next? Oh yes, feasibility study is hard to find, so don't ask for feasibility study funding. There is general charitable funding, and there are quite a few trusts are set up specifically for general charitable funding. So if you write to Lady Blogg Smythe and ask her if she'll fund your feasibility study, she probably won't bother. If you say, would you give me £5,000 to help me run my charity and the fantastic work we do, and she gives you £5,000, if you spend it on a feasibility study, what you want is the £5,000. So think about asking for things in a different way. So you can't just ask people for money. I mean, I'm Scottish, it never works for me anyway, but you can't just walk up to someone and say, give me 50 quid, because they're not going to. So what you've got to do is engage people in a way that things that matter to them matter to you. So the first thing you need to do is be really clear on what you're trying to do when you talk to people. The sector is awful at just banging volumes and volumes and volumes of social media out and just throwing it out there. If it's not going to achieve anything, don't bother. So what do I want people to do? Do I want them to give me money? Do I want to influence them to bring them on side and maybe help me? For example, by opening doors to people who will give me money. Do I want people to volunteer, or actually do I just want to inform them? By the way, we've got a fantastic resource. Why don't you just come down and use it? So what is the purpose of your communication? You must get that clear at the outset. Sorry, I'm putting the mouse in the wrong place. And then who's the audience? Are you communicating with funders? I'd send them a Christmas card. I would give them my annual report. I just want to help them understand the good work that we're doing and that we haven't forgotten about them. Is it the local community? I would like you to volunteer. I'd like you to come to the canal. Would you make an online donation? Is it your supporters? So if you have an email newsletter, these are people who are already engaged with you. You can talk to them in a different way about different things. Or is it to influence local politicians, or is it other people? Who is your audience? And what are you going to say to them that matters to them? Because it's what, if you want them to do something, you need to give them a reason that matters to them. So talk to them about what you think they think will be important. And how will you reach and engage them? I mean, there's a whole range of ways of doing it. When I was working in dementia units, we particularly wanted to reach older people. To be honest, posters in the post office, brilliant. Tesco's. The poster they bought me was of a huge group of people with tons of writing in tiny little print. And I said, if you pin that up on the other side of the post office, nobody will be able to read it. I want one image. I want a happy smiley face. I want a limited number of amount of text, and I want it in big letters so that people can actually read it. If you want to go onto Instagram, it's a visual social media platform. So pictures of canals and canal boats work really well. Doesn't work for charity excellence because all I can do is give you pictures of my laptop, and that doesn't really work. So think about what it is. Talks. Might you engage the local Lions or the Rotary Club? Because the work that you do is embedded in the local community. It's about your history and it's about culture, and it's actually really interesting. So talks to them. And if you've got a room full of business people, is that beginning to take you somewhere you might want to go? And how will you grow your audience? As I said, an ask on social media, if you've got 100 Facebook likes or something, is not going to get any traction. And you're really busy. I've grown my following to about 22,000. Apparently that's quite a lot. It has taken me 4 years to do that, and you've got better things to do with your life. So here are 2 things I've done. When I was at London Irish Centre, we moved on to Instagram. Great stuff for images, little Irish girls dancing, big hairy men playing violins and stuff. Everybody loved it. So what I did is I got a dozen people who were on side with us and what we were doing. And I said, I want you to help me leverage my social media. And so what they did is they followed us on Instagram. And every time we posted on Instagram, they would share it. And instantly went into 12 other networks and massively increased our reach. And then they would make sure that they liked our posts, they dropped nice comments in, they would feedback to comments that other people had done, and the engagement rate shot up and people started following us. And the workload on them and the workload on us was actually really quite minimal. The other one is social media groups. We open our gardens to raise money for the church each year. There's half a dozen of us. We've got no time or money or anything like that. So what I did is I got some pictures of the garden. I did a couple of social media things, and I joined all the local social media groups. We've got the Aylesbury Grapevine, we've got Wendover, Aston Clinton, Bucks Residents. I joined them all. There are 30,000 people in those groups. And when I posted, it took me half an hour. I just dropped half a dozen posts into those, banged them off to the parish magazine, the Wendover newsletter, and suddenly we reached a whole number of people. And there was very, very little effort in it, because it was the same message and the same image that went to everyone. So there are ways you can begin to build your audience and how you might do that. And the call to action. Communication is about changing things. You're looking for what you're doing to make things different that you want. I want you to like my post, to share it. I want you to donate. I want you to contact me to find out more. I want you to volunteer. I want you to click the link. There's something in there that makes people do that. I'm helping a digital platform and they couldn't work out why the brochure didn't work. And I read the brochure and I went back to them and I said, it's an 11-page brochure. Not sure people are going to read that. And your call to actions to get in contact with you via email or telephone number. And that's on page 11 at the bottom in small print. That's why nobody's doing it. So think about, what do you actually want them to do? So the core case for support, you guys are busy. You don't need to kill yourselves. So if I say to you, that if you bang off a cold bid, it really depends on your sector and all sorts, but really roughly about 1 in 10 will be successful. That's normal. If you've engaged the funder and that funder is on side, that rate falls to about 1 in 3. So that's fine. If you want £100,000 and you break that out and you want 2 lots of 20,000 and you want 4 lots of 10,000 and you want so many of 5,000, that's maybe 20 bids. If you're going to hit 1 in 3, which is bloody good, that's 60 bids. That is quite a bit of writing. And if you want to bring the money in, it's a numbers game, and that's how you do it. So how can you make that much easier? And the answer is write a core case for support. So when I did the one for the Irish Centre, I put a lot of effort into it. And it was about the best arguments, the best facts, about being really clear who we were, about the very best arguments I could make, all in one. And it's a generic bid. So if I was applying for older people's money, I would cut and paste the bits I wanted. I would adjust it to meet the funder's need in the particular project, press the print button. If it was young people, I would copy and paste slightly different bits. I would adjust it. At aged care, we had a cold mail shop and the fundraising manager managed to get 45 cold bids out the door in one day. And how did they do it? They used a core case. So it saves you time. It saves you time. And it gives you better quality bids. If you're going to write 20 bids, are you going to get the best argument in every single one of them? And the answer is, of course, you're just not going to remember all that stuff. But if what you're coming off is the very, very best quality that you've got, then consistently everything will be the best argument that you can make. So it saves you time and it makes sure you're making the best argument. And better quality comms. You speak to the fundraisers, they see this as a fundraising thing. I don't. If you're really clear on the key facts and the best quotes and the best messages and all of that kind of stuff, what I did is I used that for the website content. Because why wouldn't I? It's the best possible arguments. We would use the themes to go out on social media. I made sure that all of my trustees and key supporters had a copy of it. So if they bumped into someone and they said, oh, tell me about the Wendover Canal Trust, bang, 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 bang. They were absolutely clear on the best things that they could say and how they could really communicate and get that message over and engage people. So I really like a core case for support. How do you start writing one? Because I'm really boring, I have actually done an entire guide on how to write a core case, and there's linked through it. It just bumps straight through to the website, and just follow it. That's all you need to do. And it's not difficult, because who knows your organization best? You do. You know all the answers. So my guide's not going to give you anything clever. What it will just do is it will help you structure your thinking and think about the arguments that you can take out. And the style, succinct. That's me being diplomatic and saying short. I chaired the board for over a decade making grants. If you sent me a bid in, and you know what? We do leisure and sport, and the Wendover Canal Trust has never asked us for any money. If they had, we would have given it to them, never mind. I will read 14 bids. Some people will make it 10 pages, and it's like a Sunday afternoon. If you're number 13, I will read it, but I may well miss your key points. And some people just won't be bothered. They just said, I've done this for 2 hours, I've got out into the garden, I can't be bothered with this. So short and sharp, make sure your key points come out. It depends on who. A big heritage bid obviously is going to be far more complicated, but your average bid to Lady Blog Smythe is maybe 2 sides of A4. If you've got a leaflet to attach or a set of accounts or something to go with it, that's fine, but keep it short and sweet so it gets read and your key messages come over very clearly. At jargon free, I saw a discussion on social media about whether they should use words like blue sky thinking and strategic development plans and things. I got a master's degree in that subject and it doesn't impress me, so I don't see why it should impress anyone else. Be careful of acronyms. The canal boat leverage pivot tool doesn't mean anything to me. So think about things that they will understand. So if everyone understands, it's fine to use that as an acronym. If they don't understand, just explain it or put it in simple language, just so that the person reading it, because think about it, it is someone like me. I may know nothing about you. I may know nothing about canals. I may have no understanding of the heritage in Buckinghamshire or anything like that. So explain it in clear, plain, simple language. And be careful about jargon. I was talking to the guys last week, and one of them had named their organisation the Dope Community. And I said, I have a teenage son. I happen to know that means really, really, really good. I said, but I'm old and I'm white and I'm middle class. And as far as I'm concerned, dope stuff you smoke. So be careful about your name. And there needs to be a degree of urgency. You can argue that restoring a 200-year-old bridge, getting urgency into it may be difficult. There is huge competition. If funding you is something that's nice to do and, you know, we can do it at some point, the guys that are really urgent will get the cash. So why is it important that this is done now? This is the last bridge. It's in extensive disrepair. If we don't fix it now, it will never be, it will fall to bits. It'll be lost forever. It is the only example of this kind of bridge in Buckinghamshire, and it was designed by a very famous person, and this is the last bridge he designed. But think about how you can impress on them that they need to do this now. And emotionally engaging. People give to people. They don't give to business plans and bridges. They give to people. I had a bid that came in. It was awful. It was full of stuff. And then there was a line, and it was about a young girl, the awful situation that she'd been in, what they'd done, and the enormous difference it made to her life. And I said to the board secretary, this bid's crap. I need you to go back to them, but I buy that. They're getting money. Get me a bid back that actually does what we need it to do, and then we'll talk about how much we're going to give them. Because what they were doing was making a difference to something that I personally felt was really important. And therefore, I was more than happy to give them the money. And it needs to be compelling. You know, don't make it dry and boring. You read it and they go, yes, I absolutely get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. You're talking to me about things that matter to me. Yes, I've got this. And it's convincing. You need to be able to mount the argument of why they should do it. Very simply, but I will get bids like, oh, this is really important, and then we have to do this, and then these people need help, and I'm going, give me the facts. Why? Who says? It's an older person's afternoon tea party. Where's that? Now, if you say, we're the most deprived borough in London, we belong to this particular community, the community is socially isolated, older people are becoming extremely depressed, it's impacting their mental health, they're not actually eating properly, they don't know how to get service and advice, and we're doing all of that. And at that point, I'm going, I get it. I understand why I need to fund this. So facts and figures so that people understand it. What do you put in? Background information. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is the difference we make. And why, what the need is, and why addressing it is important and urgent, both. And how you meet the needs of your beneficiaries and the impact this will have. I often read these statements from charities, and people are passionate about what they do, and I understand that, but they get very, very focused on that. We want this. We want to do that. We want this to happen. And I sort of sit there and go, it's my money, not yours. We made a killing on a contract with the council, and we decided that the only ethical thing to do was to give it back to the people of the Aylesbury Vale who gave it in the first place. But what I'm really interested in is what you are going to do to make things that matter to me better, because that's what the funding's there for. And you need to focus on that. And you need to evidence your work. So facts, information, examples. This is a unique bridge. It's part of our heritage being the only example of. It's the last remaining habitat of the Bucks rattlesnake, or the story of canals is woven into the history of Buckinghamshire. They've got a canal stop beside the Rothschild mansion, and you actually read about how the canal was used and what it did, and how it impacted on people's lives and things. Actually, it's really interesting. So where are the facts and figures to support what you're saying? And landing the fish, the last bit, get the money. This is what we in the military would refer to as quick and dirty, things to get right. As I've said, it's not about what you want. It's not your money. It's what the funder wants and your beneficiaries need. Who's the beneficiary of a bridge? Depends. So the heritage and culture and history of the county, yeah, that's the benefit to all of us. That the canal itself is a community asset and a benefit. The fact that we'll bring the bridge back into use actually connects the two sides of the canal in a way they've never been connected before. It's actually just going to be really useful for people. So what your beneficiaries need, what is the difference that you're going to make to your community? And the funders' requirements. Endless applications for things that don't fit. We fund, well, I've stood down now, but we fund sport and leisure in Aylesbury. If you don't ask me for funding for sport and leisure, I'm not going to give it to you. So if the Wendover Canal Trust, I have no idea if they're on this webinar, by the way, but if they write to us and were to say, I want to repair a bridge, the answer would be no. If they wrote to us and said, this is an incredibly important asset for our community, it's more important because of COVID, we're seeing increasing numbers of people. This bridge is not only of architectural and historical and cultural value to the people of Buckinghamshire, it's actually an asset for the community itself. It's helping people get out and about, it's helping to appreciate the environment. And I'm going, I get you, I get you. So always check the funders' requirements and make your case well. So funders will often have priorities. I want to fund this, but I'm particularly interested in small groups, or I have an interest in history and culture, or we're environmentally conscious. They will tell you what it is that matters to them. You just need to weave that into your bid so that what you're speaking to them about is the thing that they really want. And it will engage the funder. People give to people. The bid that was submitted that included that young girl, it was awful. It was truly awful. But that line, that difference that they made to that little girl's life was enough for me to say, we've got to fund these guys, we just need the bid sorted. And the summary. Oh, we're ahead of ourselves. So the funding gap is enormous. I guess it will get bigger. And funders are favouring the frontline charities. But it is a flight to quality. So the people that just keep throwing the same old bids in the same old way, it's going to get tougher. But if you think about how you do it, if you choose your funders well, if you make your case well, if you focus how you do this, it will work. The money is still there. So think about the funding techniques that will work best for you. So the guys crowdfunded a feasibility study. Would that work for you? I don't know. And how you apply them. And you can't just ask people for money. You need to engage them. I will give you money if I'm engaged with what you do. If the Wendover Canal Trust came up to me and said, would you give us a £5 to support the canal work? I would say yes. I live next to it. I've been up and down it on a regular occasion. I actually value what they do. I would give them the money. And when you speak to things like trusts, if you can engage them, that is so useful. Because what it means is when your application comes in, they go, oh yeah, it's those guys. Yep, recognize them. Oh, I like that. And when you speak to them, what they might say is, well, we like your bid, but that bit over there, we're not really sure about that. We need proof of X. Or, well, one of the trustees is really, really passionate about Y. Or our priorities this year are focused in this particular area. And that information allows you to tailor your trust bid further so that when it hits the deck, it's got everything they want. If you try something new, there's a risk, but also the risk if you don't. That's an Ansoff product development market penetration matrix. I could talk about that, but you'd probably all sign off really quickly if I did. A core case. This is about saving you time, about making the best possible case, and actually useful in communication as well. Make sure the bid fits what the funder's looking for. And if you can tailor it to really fit it more nicely, perfect. Quality always counts. And for me, that kind of thing is what I would say, it's like wearing a suit to an interview. It's an easy win if you do, or it's a fail if you don't actually do it. And I've run out of speed. I can click to the next slide, which is an Ansoff matrix, but we won't do that because what you actually want is loads of lovely funding money. So shall I show you how to get lots of lovely funding money? This is the Charity Excellence Framework. Marvelous setup. Absolutely recommend it to anyone I would. And it's completely free. I'm Scottish. I love that stuff. So I've got my passwords gone off. What you do is when you join, you click Create Questionnaires. I've lost control. And in here, it will ask you lots of questions about how big you are, what sectors you work in, how many volunteers, and all sorts. When you click Save, it will build a set of questionnaires for you. And those questionnaires are absolutely tailored to you. So they only ask you about things that are important to you. And I think I'm in the wrong bit. These are the flashcards. Yeah. I reset it to talk to one of the big blue chips and it's massively increased the size. So I'm trying to find the funder lists, but I'm not being very successful. Anyway, I shall have to skip that. So what you get is a plain English statement, and that plain English statement should be what you see in your organization. If you're really big, it may talk about digital design. If you're a very small charity, it will talk about rattling tins or how you get your bids in. And all you do is you rate it. 1 is, no, or absolutely useless. 5 is, we've totally killed it. How important is it to you? Same as everything else. Actually, no, we don't really bother about that. Actually, this is really critical. What you're doing is you're telling the system all about you and where you are. That's not a good one. Sorry, I reset this for a very large charity, so you're getting loads. So underneath is free help and support. There are over 200 organizations on the system that give charities free stuff. I'm Scottish, it's an ethnic thing. Consultancy, strategy support, HR support, software, hardware, goods and furnishings, free accommodation space, event space, ridiculous. I've even got someone that designs stickers, and there's free websites and all sorts. So if you click the link, it will take you, there you go. So if you decide that you need some legal help, Trust Law Connect are really wonderful people. The website's slow this afternoon. And that will connect you to everyone. And the system will find the right ones for you. So this is a legally question, it connects you to a legal person. These are downloads, and this is where the funder lists are. You will get to a question that says, we have processes to identify and engage future funders. And then in block capitals, it will say, funder lists, so you can't miss it. And they're in the download section. There are 50 of them. I've mentioned small charities, I mentioned unregistered. As a thank you to Wendover, I've upgraded the buildings and equipment and uploaded it this week. There are 130 to choose from. There is now also a feasibility study funder list, and that is, it's only about 9. I couldn't find them, sorry. And those are the funder lists. So once you've scored, it'll drop everything into a dashboard for you. That's your overall performance. Here are all your questionnaires. There's governance, that's the governance code. And this is my critical health check for 2021. So maximizing impact, income, all that kind of stuff. This is your quality mark display board. Once you've done everything, the system will give you a quality mark, and I'll send you a nice logo, and then you can show people. And you think, well, that's very nice. What am I going to do about that? Well, I want income. If you click any number on the dashboard, there are all your statements and all your assessments. The system doesn't tell you you're doing it wrong, because I think that the people running organizations know what they're doing. It will help you ask the questions, and these reflect your input. So it's not it saying you're wrong, it's you saying, actually, I'm not doing this well. There's the help, and there's the resources, and you can just click through to them. There are people hate me because I've now got biggest resource base in this sector. And that's effectively how the dashboard and everything works. And then there's Funding Finder. Right, this is not a normal funding database. It's a funding database that finds other free funding databases and funder lists, about 300 of them. So the click-through is into excess of 100,000 funders globally. So what you need to do, you need to find where you are. So UK-wide, England local. I'll try Bucks. I'm not likely to get much, I suspect. Oh, that's all right. And there are the funders. So what it will do is it will tell you a bit about the funder, where they're operating, and the area they work in. This is arts and culture. So if you want the arts development company, there you go. And there is a whole list of funders in that particular area. And that's basically what it does. And you can choose various things, such as recent additions. I update it every week. I need to take that out. So if you want the recent additions, click that. These are all the ones that have been uploaded in the last month. So what I get is people dropping every Monday morning. And it will do other things like adaptation funding, core funding, disability, education, and you can search by amounts, and the export button will allow you to download them. And so what it does is it helps you find lots of lovely money. I'm Scottish. I may have said that before. I've now talked you to death. Hopefully there's still someone listening out there. Shall I hand back for Q&A?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Ian. That's really been really incredibly useful. So I hope people have started writing a bit of a to-do list, and I hope that at the top of that list is sign up, register with your website. I've got some questions. But the first question I need to ask you on behalf of our friends at the Wendover is what was the funder that you mentioned, and are there other equivalents in other areas?
We're a bit weird. We were a volunteer board. We made an absolute killing on running leisure services, made £500,000 before the council took it back off us. So what we did is we decided to spend it on the community. Aylesbury Vale Community Trust. And we fund sports and leisure. So what you need to do is you need to speak to us. Normally 2, 3, 4, 5,000. You need to speak to us about how you will deliver that for the residents of Aylesbury Vale.
I think I'm hoping that the Wendover have noted all that down. So
yeah,
and I think I'll send you their details afterwards as well.
Yeah. The easiest way to find your local funders, your local community foundation, or you may have a CVS, Council for Voluntary Services. They tend to know all the local funders.
Indeed. So I just got a few more questions. So I think we've probably got about 5-10 minutes or so to ask a few questions. Just to say, I've had one in writing as well, which I suggest we answer in writing. Ian has kindly suggested he'd do that. First question I've got here is from the Chesterfield, asking that they are a registered charity and a company. What might be the advantages of them becoming a CIO?
I wouldn't say it's a great deal. I mean, in terms of who you are and how you're seen, it makes no difference. You're a registered charity either way. A CIO is only registered with the Charity Commission, so you've only one set of regulators, although it does make a big difference. The only real difference for you is like trustee changes and annual reports need to be delivered twice. It's about 30 minutes a year. So would you get anything huge out of being a CIO? Probably not. If you wanted to be, you would need to adopt a CIO constitution, which is available online, and you would need a special resolution from the board, and you would need to send that to the Charity Commission.
Sounds straightforward. The next question I've got is about the tension between keeping things short and sweet and grant givers' long forms. Any words of advice on how to grapple with the long forms?
Give them what they want, essentially. Now, if you're applying for a major heritage bid and you're looking at $250,000 or 100,000, clearly there's going to be a lot more in that. If you're applying to Lady Blog Smythe, 2 pages is fine. And some funders, we in AVCT, we kept it as short and simple, as clear as we could, because we appreciate you guys have got better things to do. Some funders are a pain in the backside and want you to fill a whole load of stuff in, and there's not really much you can do about that, except within the form, focus again on the impact and the beneficiaries being clear and getting that compelling message over.
Can I also just sort of add, in terms of your messaging on the case for support, that your core case for support should form the backbone of pretty much most of your applications. So if you, like you said, if you do that once and you do it well, it saves you writing your application from scratch every time, potentially.
Yeah.
Another question I've got is, how is the Charity Excellence Framework funded?
Badly. I hit midlife crisis. It was either the Harley Davidson motorbike or build a platform. My wife said I couldn't have a motorbike, so I built a platform. It's entirely funded by me. I've worked unpaid for 4 years. I am a sad, sad man. And the only funding in addition to that is a little online company I set up for registering charities, and all of that money goes back into the CEF. It is getting a bit irritating because the only thing I can afford to do now is walk along the Wendover Canal. Luckily, I quite enjoy that. What I am aiming to do is to secure corporate sponsorship. It's the wrong time to do it. I have one company on board. We're converting to a charity. We just have to kill the Charity Commission first. And once we're a charity, I will be inviting people using it. And what you'll do is when you join, you'll get an email from me saying, I'm really poor and I haven't got any money. Would you chuck a couple of quid in to help us? And then what I've done, and it gets very boring, is I have built software that enables me to replicate the CEF. So I can give this so that grant funders, large charities, groups of charities have their own that they can run themselves. And it's very simple to do when it's set up that way. And what I'm going to do is, if I brought on the RSPCA and big boys like that, I would say to them, could you chip a few quid in? And the idea is it's owned by the charity sector and effectively funded by the charity sector, although in a very limited way. It has to stay free. I'm quite clear about that. I've come under pressure from the trustees and others, and I've said, no, I think there's people in the sector who've got bags of bloody money, and I think they should spend it on funding it rather than you, because you haven't got bags of money.
It's fantastic as a resource, and it's free. It's incredible. And just to ask, somebody said, can you register with for two different organisations, but potentially on with the same email?
No, the one thing it cannot do, and I hadn't thought of this to begin with, is that it treats your email as your username. And therefore, when you've joined with that email, you can't use it again. I will say this, use any kind of different emails. And there are some charities that have got multiple accounts. They'll set one up. I'll not mention them, it's one of the big ones, but they've got one in the fundraising team and one in the finance team and one in the governance team. So if you wanted to set up multiple accounts, you're more than welcome. The system doesn't care. It just won't let you use the same email or the same name.
Okay, I've just got a final couple of questions. One is about sponsorship. It hasn't been mentioned in this. Just wanted to, well, the question is, do you recommend going after it?
Again, it's that whole thing about, do you have the fit? Have you got the skills and reach and connections? Have you got the engagement? If you do, brilliant. I've gone after sponsorship. I was told I could probably bring on 8 corporates. They'd probably pay about 10k each. That would fund the system. I got 2 who were prepared to sign on the dotted line in late March 2020. And I haven't got them anymore. What I will say is some key points for you. The availability of business and corporates and willingness to hand out money is dependent on them having money in the first place. They're in a desperate situation at the moment. Your local pub is almost certainly not able to sponsor you any longer. So there's a lack of money. And the second element is about engagement. The only 2 I have brought on were introductions where someone knew the managing director of a big blue chip. They emailed him and said, you really, really, really want to see what Ian's done. It's absolutely brilliant. You love it. And once I showed it to him, he was totally on side about it. I have tried to get into big blue chips and corporates. You cannot get past the receptionists and the guardians they've got wrapped around them. So the question I would ask you is, who are you able to reach? So if your trustees just happen to know the boss of the local company that works in that area and they could get you an introduction or chat, yeah, why not? You've nothing to lose. And that's why I suggest things like speaking at things like the Rotary or the Lions Club, because what that's giving you the opportunity to do is to reach those guys and engage them.
Excellent advice. Yeah, networking is the key. So finally, I was just going to say, I think that's it in terms of questions. I was going to suggest there could be a bit of homework from this session, that if people wanted to go away and do their case for support quite concisely and neatly and see if they can tick all the boxes, I'm very happy to read what people write and comment. So if I pop my email address in the chat box, please get in touch about that, and obviously read Ian's resources on how to go about doing that. I think Ian has also said he's happy to answer any questions that arise from this as well, so please drop me an email and I can pass that on.
Are you going to share the links in my presentation that are links all the way down to all the different resources?
So we have set up a document that with the presentation in it. We've also set up the links that you've sent us as well, the links specifically to the videos about how to find the funder lists and what have you. So I suggest people look at the videos to check out how to use your resources to the most effective level. And I think that was it from us. But just to say thank you, Ian. Thank you.
Can I say a final one on engagement?
It
just occurred to me. Everybody says we don't know anyone. The whole thing, we're all 6 steps from connection to the entire world. I was working with an asylum charity and I was helping them out, and I talked to them about how to do this, and I told them the kind of people we're looking at, and everybody went, come on, we're an asylum charity, we don't know anyone important. And one of the staff came in to me and said, I got a connection to the producer of Slumdog Millionaire. And I went, seriously? And he went, yeah, my next door neighbour's a gardener, and he does the gardening for the guy that produced Slumdog Millionaire. and he's a really, really keen gardener, and they got on like a house on fire. And it was like, yo, so it's really quite useful, but people need help, because if you say to someone, do you know people? Like, no, I don't know anyone. So what I tend to do is I try and come up with a list, either the kinds of people or particular targets if you have them. And then I go out to my supporters that I know and I go, guys, here's my wish list. Can any of you connect us to people on my wish list? And if you get nothing back, either I'm really, really, really surprised, or they didn't read the wish list. I'm no great deal. I'm certainly not engaging. You would not want to stand next to me at a party. I talk about soft systems, methodologies, and value chains and things. When we were at the LIC, I was chatting to a guy we brought on board, and he said, oh, you know my wife? I went, no, mate, I don't know your wife. I'm not like that. And he said, no, it's Angela Scanlon. And I said to him, who's Angela Scanlon? And he went, you don't watch the TV, do you? And I went, no, not really. And so Angela, lovely person, did a black tie cocktail party for us. We had famous film producers that she brought in with the people, 10 Cats. There's a program. I know nothing about this stuff, but they came along. Then we brought on Dermot O'Leary, and we were £1 million organisation that was just looking after people and doing dancing in Irish language and stuff. So I'm not suggesting that you go hell for leather to do this, because it doesn't always work, but you can get lucky.
Okay, thank you for those final words. Yeah, tap your networks, I think, they're all out there. I think we'll close everything there. Thank you again, Ian. That's been incredibly valuable, and I hope everyone uses all these resources that are just an absolute wealth of useful information. Thank you to the team behind the scenes, IWA Restoration Hub team, and to the Canal and River Trust. And we'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you.